Years before I ever heard of Kitchener or memorized any steps, I taught myself how to graft by just looking at the stitches and sliding them off my needle. So if I look at these two stitches, I can see how I need to bring them together to create something that looks like a stitch. So I know I have to put my needle in like that to bring those two legs together. And I would do the same thing on the other side. I would kind of poke my head around the other side and I would see, I get it. I have to bring these two together to create something that looks like a stitch. So I would slide them off and I would lay them flat and take a look, and I could see that I needed to go down and up to bring that together to look like a stitch. Now, obviously, this took a long time, but it did teach me some things about grafting, and it taught me about how the stitch is actually connected, like how I always have to go back in where I came from and jog over into the next stitch. So that's what I would do. I would give a little snug, and then I would go back in, oops, there we go, back in where I came from, and I would jog into the next stitch. Now eventually, actually paying attention to where my needle went in, this is how I taught myself Kitchener, even though it wasn't quote unquote right. So next up, Kitchener without the ears. The secret to a smooth toe and Kitchener without the ears is forget the first step, forget the last step. Exactly how I showed you that I used to go in visually, that's what you're really doing. So you're always going to knit off from the front needle and then purl on. And then in the back needle, always traveling underneath, you're going to purl off, knit on, and you're going to repeat. Knit off, remember, we're going back in where we came from, purl on, and remember, that's jogging over into the next stitch. See that shape that it's making? There's that shape of a knit stitch. And always in the back, purl off, knit on. So I'm going to keep working my way to the very end, and let's see what happens when we have 2 stitches left. Almost at the end, knit on, purl off. I mean the other way around. Knit off, purl on. Purl off, knit on. I just want to pause for a second. We'll take a look at the top. Look how nice that looks and how rounded that toe is. No ear. So now we ignored the first steps. We're going to ignore the last steps. And I'm going to pull these 2 needles out. Now I'm going to really give a nice hard tug to that yarn. And I'm going to look and see, where's this guy coming out? So here's, if I give a little tug, a little wiggle and a jiggle, you can see that last stitch that it came out of, and it's going into that last stitch in the back. So what I want to do is just pull it right back down into the front where it came from. I'm going to pull that through to the other side. Give a little snug. And I can weave that guy in. But I'll just pause for a second to turn around. And there you have completely earless, rounded toe at the front and the back, to the right and the left. So, moral of the story, don't do it right, do it better.